Alright guys, so the next thing on your note guide there talks about the Boxer Rebellion. So with this, I want you to think about for a second, if you are China, put yourself in China's position in the late 1890s and early 1900s. So think about it for a second. You've got your country that has been doing its own thing for however many years, and all of a sudden over the last few years there are countries from all over the world that want to come into your nation and try and sell things and basically try and exert their influence economically over your people, meaning that there's people from all over the world that want to come and just sell you stuff. They don't really you at least you don't think that they are all that interested in you and your culture. They just want to sell you things and make money off of you. So for the idea that there are Chinese people at this time in China who see all of these countries coming in, particularly like the United States, they see them coming in and wanting to sell them things and trying to exert influence there, and they are not really big fans of the idea. So you have this group of people known as the Boxers. And I say Boxers not as in like, Mike Tyson boxer, but a boxer. It's just the name of their group at this time. It was a society nicknamed the Boxers, who basically led this violent act, this rebellion against all of these foreign people, including people of the United States, just for being in their country and trying to exert all of this influence in their nation. And the Boxer Rebellion basically is this big uprising of angry people over all of this newfound foreign influence coming into their country. And they kill about 300 people in a period of, let's call it a month and a half. They really do not take well to the idea of all of these people coming into their country and trying to sell them things all of a sudden. Now, go down the street to Japan. Japan is in a similar boat, but not quite exactly the same boat as China. Like China, Japan has been isolationist for a while. And what I mean by isolationist is that they've sort of been worrying about themselves. They've been worried about maintaining their own nation. They've been worried about keeping their own people safe and keeping their own economy profitable. So when the United States sends Commodore Matthew Perry to Japan, because we're interested in trading with them as well, Japan, just like the United States, they want us to be trading partners with them. However, they also, and by they I mean Japan wants some interest in China as well. Japan is also interested in trying to go sell things in China, just like all other parts of the world. So in 1908, there is basically a treaty, an agreement, the Root-Takahira Agreement in 1908. Basically, it just gives the United States and Japan some equal respect in terms of leaving each other alone while each country tried to sell things in China. So basically, your Root-Takahira Agreement is the U.S. saying, hey, Japan, we'll leave you alone. It's Japan saying, hey, United States, we'll leave you alone. We'll both try and sell things in China, and we'll just sort of stay out of each other's way. Now remember, the Monroe Doctrine, we've been talking about it for a little bit now. This is decades old at this point. The Monroe Doctrine is actually created in 1823, long before any of these guys like Teddy Roosevelt or William Howard Taft or Woodrow Wilson, before any of them are president. So the Monroe Doctrine at this point, again, just says, hey, Europe, you're not allowed to come colonize in the Western Hemisphere. You got to stay out. Now, there's this guy, Henry Cabot Lodge, who's a senator, who basically creates a little addendum, or what's called a corollary, to the Monroe Doctrine. And we're going to call this corollary the Lodge Corollary, named after Henry Cabot Lodge. And basically, when you think about the Lodge Corollary, I want you to think about it like this. The Monroe Doctrine, picture it as a piece of paper that you're holding up saying, hey, Europe, you have to keep out of the Western Hemisphere. When you think of the Lodge Corollary, I want you to think of basically a little post-it note, or like an extra piece of paper that's being attached to said Monroe Doctrine. Like he's putting a little post-it note down on the bottom and saying, oh, and also, even if you're not from Europe, places like Japan, basically everybody else, you have to also keep out of the Western Hemisphere because the United States is going to be colonizing there. You're not allowed to come colonize here. Okay? So think of the Lodge Corollary as this addition, saying, well, we already knew that Europe can't come colonize in the Western Hemisphere. The Lodge Corollary says, even if you're not Europe, basically, if you're anybody else, you also have to keep out of the Western Hemisphere. All right, guys, lastly, we've got a little chunk of your note guide there talking about the Great White Fleet. Basically, this is just Teddy Roosevelt at the time who, by the early 1900s, he's really worried about that naval superiority. You know, Roosevelt's a military guy. He totally understands the power of a navy on the seas at this time. Remember, guys, airplanes are not really a part of a military's arsenal yet. They will be pretty soon. Literally just a handful of years down the road in World War I, they will be a part of a military's arsenal, but at this point, they are not. So basically what Teddy Roosevelt does is he creates what he calls his Great White Fleet. They are just a huge fleet of white naval ships that basically he's going to take around the world. And by the world, I mean he's basically going to parade them around the Pacific Ocean. And he's going to float them around the ocean and basically wave to everybody while he passes them by and says, hey, everybody, check out our big fleet of white ships here. And what he's doing here is he's trying to establish some dominance. He's basically trying to establish to other countries in the world, hey, the United States is here. We have a really important navy. Please don't make us use them because we will. Remember, that's Teddy Roosevelt's motto there is to speak softly but carry a big stick. So it's basically this display of power for the United States while trying to imperialize in the Pacific. All right, and I believe that is it for this PowerPoint, guys. So that wasn't too terrible. I'd say in total with both of the videos, by the way, I have to upload them in 15-minute chunks because the service that I'm using to actually create these videos only allows you to record 15 minutes at a time. So if you see part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, whatever, that just means that I've chunked it out while I'm going in the PowerPoint. But if you made it through the whole thing, guys, thank you very, very much for participating. I really hope that this little bit of lecture notes will help you with your note guide, help you kind of make some sense of imperialism while everybody's stuck at home. Again, just to shout out to everybody, regardless if you're in my Mod 2 or my Mod 3, I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that your families are doing well. I realize it's kind of a crazy time to be doing all of this learning remotely. I also realize that trying to do assignments for you guys, for students, is going to be tough. So just give me your best shot. I'm doing my best to try and make this as seamless and as easy as possible here. You'll notice that your Google Classroom has changed a little bit in now that your classwork tab looks a little different. Now I'm going to be chunking it out by weeks. So you'll notice week 1 is actually 2 weeks of school. That's basically because the school system wasn't exactly clear whether we're supposed to be starting the week of March 30th or the week of April 6th. So I figured I would just consider both of them week 1. I made all of the due dates the very last day of each chunked week. So all of the assignments, I believe there's 5, maybe 6 assignments in week 1. They are all due April 10th. That means that I'm not going to collect them on a day-to-day basis. That means that if you want to do them all at once, you can. If you want to do one at a time and turn them in one at a time, that's fine too. It's going to require a lot of self-discipline on your part, so make sure that you're giving yourself time to actually sit down and do the work and make some sense of the stuff that we're trying to learn in here, all right? But again, I hope you guys are doing great. Please, if you have any questions at all, don't be afraid to email me. Hit me up on Google Classroom, in comments, or send me a message there. I'll do my very best to help you out. And just stay tuned, guys, with all of your classes. Make sure that you're staying tuned with your Google Classroom site or OneNote or whatever it is that your teachers are sending out to try and make this work for you. All right, but with that, that's all I got for you. and I'll see you guys soon.